Inconveniently for the Prime Minister, that's just simply not true. Not only is the Finance Minister failing to follow the rules, he's also not very good at his job. He promised to run a deficit of only $10 billion, and of course he's blown right past that. He promised that wealthy Canadians would pay more, but after his measures came in, the top 1% ended up paying less. All the while, working Canadians, on average, are paying over 80% of working Canadians are paying more. So the Finance Minister isn't competent and he can't follow the rules. Why is he still in cabinet?
The right honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have full confidence in the Minister of Finance, and one only has to look at the 500,000 new jobs to understand why. But it's interesting. We've created Prime Minister question period on Wednesdays to give an opportunity to backbench MPs to ask the Prime Minister directly questions. But if the member opposite wants to see how much confidence I have in the Minister of Finance, he just needs to keep asking these questions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we're happy to keep asking.
We were hearing nice things about peace earlier. I like that. Let's try to have a bit. A little quiet when we hear the questions and the answers. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition has the floor.
We're happy to keep asking questions, Mr. Speaker. The reason why the Finance Minister is in trouble is because he can't simply answer the questions. He misled Canadians about putting his assets in a blind trust. He was fined for holding onto an offshore corporation and not disclosing it, and he introduced pension legislation that could benefit himself and his family company. And now he's refusing to answer simple questions about personal, multi-million-dollar transactions in Morneau. So how is it that the Prime Minister is able to blindly trust someone who has demonstrated such ethical lapses?
Right Honourable Prime Minister. Order. Order. I'm unable to hear the answer from the Minister of Finance. Order. Order. I'm going to need to hear it, or we'll have a shorter question period, perhaps. Alors, the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we've reached a new low in this House. The opposition members clearly
The Honourable Minister of Finance. Order.
Mr. Speaker, there are no secrets here. As has been reported in the press, when I came into office, I sold some shares. As has been reported, when I came into office, I made a $5 million donation to charity. As we know, we campaigned to 36 million Canadians that we would raise taxes on the 1%, which we did. As everybody knows, except for perhaps the opposition, nobody knows about the stock market in advance. So, Mr. Speaker, if the members opposite have something they want to say, they should say it here, say it now clearly, and in the foyer.
Order. Order. Alors, l'honorable député de Tresse de Blainville, les autres devraient rester à l'ordre. Honorable chef de l'opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's good to see the Finance Minister being allowed to answer a question. So if he's so sure that he's done nothing wrong, will he answer one very specific question? And this question has been posed in the House as well as outside of the House. Was it he that sold the shares, 680,000 shares in Morneau, just days before the motion was tabled in this House to change the tax rates?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
I am absolutely happy to answer the question. As has been reported in the press, I did sell shares when I came into office. What I can say with absolute clarity, Mr. Speaker, is that what we're doing here is we are focusing on something because they don't want to focus on something else. What they don't want to focus on is how well things are going for Canadians. That's what we will continue to be focused on, Mr. Speaker. We will pursue what we know is in the best interest of Canadians. That's what's working. That's what we're going to continue to do.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he still won't answer that specific question. On November 30th, 680,000 shares in Morneau were sold. Was it the finance minister who sold those shares?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say it again. There are no secrets here. If the member opposite has an allegation, if he wants to say something, he should say what he means. He should say it here, he should say it now, he should stand up and say it. And then he should go out in the foyer and say it again.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Prime Minister has rehearsed yesterday's talking points because, in fact, our Finance Shadow Minister did go outside the House and repeated everything that was said inside the House. Now, it may be a standard practice on Bay Street to threaten legal action anytime legitimate questions are raised, but that isn't befitting of a Finance Minister. If he believes he did nothing wrong, can the Finance Minister simply confirm or deny whether or not it was he who sold 680,000 shares days before the motion to change taxes was tabled in the House?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I can understand that it be the Leader of the Opposition who chooses to get up again because the member for Carleton refused to repeat the allegations he made on Monday outside this House yesterday. He is hiding behind parliamentary privilege, and I don't blame the Leader of the Opposition for taking his place right now.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Prime Minister and Finance Minister are jumping the gun. The accusations haven't been made because we're just trying to get an answer to the question. Was it the Finance Minister who sold 680,000 shares days before the motion was tabled in the House? It's up to him to answer the question. If he did it, will he defend it? If he didn't do it, why can't he just say it?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Now, Mr. Speaker, we see a bit of damage control where the opposition is trying to hide behind lawyers and hide behind parliamentary privilege. On Monday, the opposition made allegations that they have refused to repeat outside this chamber. The member from Carleton swept out of this chamber and then refused to repeat what he had said on Monday outside this chamber. And now, Mr. Speaker, they're backtracking because their lawyers have told them to. That's the kind of attacks and campaign of throwing dirt that they've been doing.
Order. I want to remind members that each side gets their turn, and members on one side should have confidence in those who will have the chance to speak for their side to make the arguments that they feel should be made, not have to make them while someone else is speaking and has the floor, and wait till they have the chance and they have the floor. So let's listen to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition and then to the answer.
Mr. Speaker, all the facts that have been said inside the House by opposition MPs have been repeated outside the House. Those are yesterday's talking points the Prime Minister is going off of. But when we look at the facts, the Liberal campaign platform would lead Canadians to believe that the fiscal changes would take place and come into effect on April 1st in 2016. Only when the Finance Minister decided that they would come into effect in December of 2015, and only when the public knew about that, would markets move. Days before that decision was announced to Canadians, 680,000 shares were sold. Was it the Finance Minister who made the sale?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You see, Mr. Speaker, opposition members have a job to do. They have to oppose. And the challenge they have right now is, despite 10 years of terrible economic stories from Stephen Harper's Conservative government, we have been able to demonstrate record growth, record job creation. We've helped millions of Canadians by lowering taxes on the middle class and raising them on the wealthiest 1%. They voted against those measures, but they now have nothing to do except make wild accusations and sling mud, because that's simply what they do.
Fred, I have to ask the member for St. Albert Edmonton to restrain himself and not to be interrupting when someone else has the floor. I know it's an exciting moment, but we have to restrain ourselves. The Honourable Leader of the... It seems the member for St. Albert Edmonton did not hear me and is not listening. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister cannot answer simple questions. We've asked them, did the Finance Minister meet with the Ethics Commissioner before tabling Bill C-27? They can't answer that. We've asked whether or not it was the Finance Minister himself who sold the shares just days before tax measures became public here in the House of Commons. They can't answer that. They cannot hide behind sweeping dismissals based on personal accusations. It's up to them to answer these questions. We have an obligation to defend the interests of taxpayers. Canadians need to know that there isn't one set of rules for Liberals and another set of rules for everybody else. Will the Finance Minister finally do the right thing and resign?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the members of the opposition can't even keep their stories straight in their attacks. For weeks, they demanded that the finance minister sell his shares. Now, they're saying that he should not have sold his shares. They are all over the place in their attacks because that is just what they do. Meanwhile, we remain focused on Canadians, on lowering taxes for the middle class, on lowering taxes for small businesses, on creating investments in infrastructure that are going to help Canadians from coast to coast to coast, on delivering on the promises we made in the election campaign that Canadians are counting on.